The Vorthix Interstellar Academy loomed above Kralith 9 like a polished blade suspended over a battlefield. Its obsidian towers folded into one another at impossible angles, glowing faintly with the blue pulse of gravitational stabilizers. Every species that mattered sent their brightest here. Every species except one, until this year. Lyra Hale stepped through the arrival chamber with the calm poise of someone accustomed to hostile terrain. Her boots clicked against alloy flooring engineered to withstand pressure that would crush most human cities. Dozens of alien eyes tracked her movement, thin pupils, bioluminescent irises, multifaceted insectoid clusters, all watching the lone human like a dangerous creature entering a glass enclosure. A whispered ripple passed through the students. Deathworlder. Contain it. Why would they admit one of those? Lyra ignored the murmurs and kept walking. She had spent her entire life learning how to endure scrutiny. The galactic government labeled Earth a biological anomaly, too violent, too adaptable, too extreme. Allowing a human into the academy was an experiment none of these species requested. She stopped at the threshold of the Hall of Gravitation. The dome stretched nearly a kilometer wide, its ceiling swirling with silver lattices of compressed field lines. Gravity shifted here like weather, controlled, measured, perfectly weaponized for training. Instructor Threx stood near the center, broad-shouldered and rigid, his skin the metallic sheen of the DRA core caste. He turned as Lyra entered, jaw tightening. "You will follow every directive the first time it is spoken," he said, voice deep and resonant. "Human error in this hall will be catastrophic." "Yes, instructor," Lyra replied softly. Her quiet tone unsettled him more than defiance would have. The alien students formed loose clusters as she approached. Every group parted slightly, as though instinct compelled them to set distance between themselves and the human. One student remained still, a tall Vorthian male with cobalt skin, sharp cranial ridges, and a posture sharpened by combat heritage. Xor'vak Drow. He didn't look away when Lyra met his gaze. Instead, his lip curled in a faint, disdainful smile. "So this is the creature." His voice carried just enough volume to ensure others heard. "Smaller than I expected." Lyra kept her expression neutral. "I'm here to train, not to impress you." Xor'vak chuckled, a low, vibrating sound. "That will certainly be the outcome." Instructor Threx activated the training interface. Gravity shifted instantly, rippling across the dome in waves. Most students widened their stance, muscles tensing to adjust. Lyra felt the pressure settle over her like a heavy blanket, familiar, almost comforting. Earth's gravity had prepared her for this far better than they understood. 3 times standard galactic gravity, Threx announced. "Hold formation." Lyra remained perfectly balanced. A few aliens glanced at her in brief confusion. Xor'vak noticed, his amusement fading. Threx continued, "You are here to learn how to control your movement under strain. Precision over force. Stability over speed." He motioned toward the far end of the dome. "All students, formation drills, row by row." Lyra stepped into place beside a slender Physiari student whose translucent limbs trembled under the increased pressure. The creature cast a nervous sideways glance. How are you not struggling?" it whispered. Lyra gave a small, reassuring shrug. "We grow up with difficult conditions." "Difficult? Your world is classified as lethal. Difficulty is relative." Instructor Threx's voice boomed through the hall. "Beginning sequence." Rows of students moved forward. Staggered steps echoed, some steady, others strained. Lyra advanced smoothly, conserving energy, adjusting her breathing to the pressure shifts. Xor'vak observed from his row, eyes narrowing whenever Lyra glided through a maneuver other students stumbled over. At one point, when she pivoted cleanly under a gravity spike, his ridges flared in irritation. "What trick is that, human?" he called out. Lyra didn't pause. "Practice." "That was not practice. Your species cheats." Threx snapped, "Cadet Drow, maintain discipline." Xor'vak dipped his head, but his glare stayed locked on Lyra. The drill continued for nearly an hour. The gravity rose and fell in unpredictable intervals, testing every tendon and reflex. When finally dismissed for a brief rest, students collapsed across the floor, panting. Lyra sank down quietly, her breathing deep but controlled. A group of Vorthians approached Xor'vak, murmuring praise. "You moved well under the spikes. No human should keep pace with you. It humiliates our caste if we allow this." Xor'vak lifted his chin. "It won't continue." One of the group pointed subtly toward Lyra. "She doesn't even look fatigued." Xor'vak's gaze hardened. "She will." Instructor Threx approached Lyra with measured steps. "Cadet Hale." She stood immediately. "Yes, Instructor. Your adaptation is unexpected. You maintain posture with minimal strain. I've prepared for variable gravity since childhood." "Even so." He studied her with an expression between suspicion and reluctant respect. "Ensure your restraint band remains active at all times. If you exceed safe force output." "I understand," she said. "I won't." Threx nodded once but seemed unconvinced. As he moved away, Lyra felt Xor'vak's presence before he spoke. His heavy footsteps vibrated faintly through the reinforced floor. "You hide behind calm expressions," he said. "As if pretending to be composed will make you equal." Lyra wiped a trace of sweat from her brow. "You want something?" "Yes." "A demonstration." He leaned slightly closer. "I wonder how fragile you are without your world shielding you." She met his stare with steady eyes. "Fragility isn't determined by origin." Xor'vak laughed sharply. "You speak like you believe that." Another student tugged his arm. "Leave it. Instructor will discipline you." "Let him try," Xor'vak replied. Lyra stepped back, giving him space. "This isn't the place." "Tomorrow is," he said. "Sparring rotation. I'll make sure we meet. I'll follow assigned pairing. I change what is assigned." Lyra's jaw tightened, but she didn't answer. Xor'vak tilted his head, studying her silence. "You behave as if restraint grants strength. But quiet only hides fear." Lyra turned away. "Interpret it however you want." As she walked toward the exit ports, whispered conversations resumed. Some fearful. Some curious. Some anticipating spectacle. Instructor Threx watched her leave, tension etched across his metallic features. He recognized danger, he just couldn't tell from which direction it would come. At the door, Lyra paused for a moment and exhaled slowly. She had hoped to complete this program without conflict. But she understood predatory behavior, she had seen it on Earth in storms, in beasts, and in people pushed to their limits. Xor'vak wasn't posturing. He intended confrontation. And if he attacked carelessly under high gravity, someone would die. She whispered to herself, barely audible beneath the hum of the dome, "I'll avoid it if I can." Then she stepped into the corridor, leaving behind a hall buzzing with tension none of them fully understood yet. Tomorrow, the line between discipline and survival would be drawn. And she already knew who would force her to cross it. Morning light filtered through the Academy's metallic corridors as Lyra Hale approached the Hall of Gravitation again. The air felt different, charged, but not from the gravity fields. Whispers spread ahead of her, carried by students who remembered Xor'vak's expression the previous day. Anticipation clung to the walls like dust. Lyra paced evenly, ignoring the stares. She rehearsed breathing patterns to steady her mind. Avoid confrontation. Stay within regulation. Survive. At the dome's entrance, Instructor Threx stood reviewing pairing schedules on a floating hologrid. He barely acknowledged the students filing in, but Lyra noticed a flicker of concern behind his neutral expression. "Today," Threx announced, "you will engage in controlled sparring to evaluate balance under fluctuating gravity. Pairings have been assigned. Follow them exactly." Names scrolled across translucent panels. Lyra located hers, paired with a gentle-limbed Physiari student named Anivi. Safe, predictable, unlikely to provoke anything. A moment of relief. Anivi scurried toward her, breathing quickly. I was told humans break bones easily. Will this hurt? I'll be careful, Lyra said. It's a light exercise. Before Anivi could respond, a tall shadow caught between them. Xor'vak stepped forward, seizing the hollow panel with one hand. His claws scraped its surface, scattering data streams. You're misplaced, little Fiziari, he said. This human belongs to me. Anivi froze. Instructor assigned. Xor'vak leaned in. Leave. Anivi bolted without another word. Lyra kept her voice steady. That wasn't your decision to make. Xor'vak smirked. Everything here is my decision. He tapped his combat band, showing a false pairing code. The system recognizes us as partners. Lyra immediately understood. He had hacked or overridden the assignment grid. That meant planning. Intent. Instructor Threx turned, spotting the disruption. Cadet Drow. You will not alter. Xor'vak raised a placating hand. Apologies, Instructor. The system must have reassigned us after my band reset. Technical fault. Threx frowned, unable to verify without halting the entire session. That would embarrass him, and Xor'vak knew it. Proceed, Threx ordered reluctantly. But keep the engagement regulated. Xor'vak's smile sharpened. Of course. Lyra studied him. Calm. Controlled. She would de-escalate if possible. But she recognized the rigid tension shaping his stance. He intended more than demonstration. Threx activated the gravity dome. A surge rolled outward like a massive, invisible tide. Students braced. The field settled at 4 times standard gravity, heavier than usual for a first sparring pass. Lyra exhaled carefully, centering her weight. Xor'vak shifted easily, a child of a high-gravity world. His confidence swelled. He approached her with a slow, predatory stride. This is where you realize your limits, he said softly. Lyra raised her hands in a defensive stance. I don't want to hurt you. You can still walk away. Stop pretending. His ridges flared. Your kind enjoys violence. I'm simply giving you a chance to embrace it. He lunged. Lyra pivoted aside, letting his momentum pass. No counterstrike. Controlled avoidance. The watching students murmured. Did she dodge that? Impossible under this gravity. Xor'vak spun back instantly, claws flashing. Lyra ducked, redirecting the swipe with minimal contact. She stepped backward, creating space. That all you can do? He taunted. Stop, she said. You're not following regulation. Regulation is for the weak. He attacked again, faster, sharper. Lyra deflected, absorbing impact through her arms while keeping her feet planted. The floor vibrated under each of his strikes. She kept count of his movements, waiting for a moment to disable him safely. But his aggression escalated too quickly. A warning ping sounded from the dome's monitoring system. Lyra glanced at Xor'vak's combat band. Inactive. He had disabled the restraint limiter entirely. Her heartbeat quickened. If she hit back now, even slightly, she could kill him. If she didn't, he might succeed in killing her. Xor'vak noticed her glance and grinned. No safeguards. Just strength. He thrust forward again, this time with killing intent. Lyra rolled aside, feeling his claw pass a breath from her neck. Her instincts sharpened, calculation overriding fear. I won't warn you again, she said quietly. Xor'vak activated a wrist command. The gravity around Lyra spiked to 6 times normal in a localized field. Her knees hit the floor instantly. Pain shot through her legs. Her elbows trembled. The dome darkened around her edges as her vision struggled to adapt. Students gasped and staggered away from the concentrated force. You kneel well, Xor'vak said, voice tinged with triumph. Stay there. He raised his arm to strike downward. Lyra's instincts surged awake in a single, precise pulse. Her muscles tightened, adjusting density to handle the crushing weight. Breath steadied. Nerves aligned for survival. She lifted her head. Her eyes focused sharply on his center mass. Stop now, she repeated. Not desperate. Not afraid. A final line. Xor'vak roared and brought his arm down, claws extended to pierce. Lyra moved. The motion was too fast for most students to see clearly, but not chaotic, clean, decisive. She twisted under his descending arm, let the strike miss by a fraction, and planted her hand beneath his sternum. Her other arm hooked behind his neck. A single pivot, using his gravity-enhanced weight against him. A crack echoed through the dome, sharp, unmistakable. Xor'vak's body collapsed instantly, gravity field flickering from the disruption of his band. Silence followed. Lyra remained crouched for a second longer, breath controlled, eyes steady. She released his form gently to the floor. His ridged head lay at an unnatural angle. His chest didn't rise. Students stood frozen, horror etched across their faces. Instructor Threx stumbled forward, disbelief stripping authority from his voice. What just happened? No one answered. They had watched a human move through 6 times normal gravity and end a Vorthian warrior's life in a single, efficient counter. Lyra stood slowly. Pain rippled through her joints, but she kept her expression neutral. He attacked with lethal intent, she said. I responded to survive. Threx's jaw worked but no sound emerged. Lyra stepped away from Xor'vak's body, giving the instructor space to confirm the death. He did, hands trembling. A hush fell heavier than the gravity itself. Lyra looked around the hall. No triumph. No fear. Only the clarity of someone who had crossed a line she didn't choose. The dome lights flickered as emergency protocols activated. Tribunal drones descended, scanning the scene, recording everything. One student whispered shakily, humans aren't supposed to be able to do that. Another stepped back, eyes wide. Where are they? Lyra didn't respond. She simply waited for the investigation to begin, standing still while the whispers grew into a cold, collective realization. They had forced a human to stop holding back. And the consequence lay silent on the floor. The hall of gravitation remained suspended in utter stillness. No one breathed loudly, no one dared shift weight. The gravity fields hummed in steady pulses, unaware a life had ended inside them. Xor'vak Drow's body lay where it had fallen, the unnatural twist of his neck a silent indictment of the moment he mistook restraint for weakness. Tribunal drones descended in a precise formation, metallic spheres refracting blue and white light across the dome. Their scanning beams swept through the students, the floor, the gravity regulators, and finally over Lyra Hale. Instructor Threx stood rigid near Xor'vak's body, his expression trapped between duty and shock. Students, he said, voice strained, remain inside marked zones until instructed otherwise. Do not interfere with tribunal operations. The students shuffled into designated areas, keeping maximum distance from Lyra. Some couldn't look at her at all. Others stared with a mixture of awe and deep unease. A drone halted in front of Lyra and projected a thin column of light along her body. Her pulse, temperature, and micromuscle patterns were analyzed instantly. Cadet Lyra Hale, it said in a monotone. Did you initiate lethal force? No, Lyra answered. Her voice remained steady. He attempted to kill me. I acted in self-defense. The drone paused, processing. Instructor Threx cleared his throat. Her account aligns with initial sensor readings. Cadet Drow's restraint band was deactivated before physical contact. Another drone illuminated Xor'vak's wristband. Its cracked housing flickered faintly, revealing deliberate override marks. Override confirmed, the drone stated. Lethal intent probability, 92.4%. A ripple passed through the observing students, fear mixed with guilt. Many had encouraged Xor'vak's hostility for weeks, entertained by the idea of proving human inferiority. None had expected the conclusion they now witnessed. Lyra stood unmoving, feet exact, shoulders aligned. Inside, her joints throbbed from the localized gravity spike she had endured moments earlier, but she didn't let the ache reach her expression. Showing weakness now would shift the balance of the investigation. She knew how alien societies interpreted emotional cracks. A third drone began playback of the recorded sparring sequence. Hola projections floated above the dome, Xor'vak lunging without warning, Lyra dodging, his claws slicing through air, her repeated attempts to create distance, the gravity spike, and the final counter, clean, controlled, fatal. Anivi, the Physiari student who had originally been paired with her, whispered, she warned him. She said it clearly. Another student muttered, he thought humans bluff. He thought wrong, someone replied. Instructor Threx watched the replay with a tense jaw. When it ended, he faced Lyra. Why didn't you call for instructor intervention? His voice was not accusatory, simply seeking clarity. I assessed that calling out would give him an opening, she said. His reaction speed exceeded safe delay. Survival required immediate action. Threx looked down at Xor'vak's body. He couldn't argue. Couldn't deny. Couldn't undo. The Tribunal drones synchronized their data. A joint projection formed above them, cold, precise verdict text and shifting glyphs. Conclusion: Cadet Lyra Hale exercised proportional response under lethal threat. Responsibility for the fatal outcome lies with Cadet Xor'vak Drell. No disciplinary action warranted. Gasps broke out across the dome. Several students exchanged stunned glances. Clearance meant the Academy had formally acknowledged both Xor'vak's aggression and humanity's right to survive. The drones retracted into their dormant ports, leaving silence behind. Threx inhaled slowly. Cadet Hale. Lyra met his gaze. Instructor? He gestured for her to step forward. The class parted automatically, a corridor of uneasy bodies opening around her. She walked with measured strides, aware of every set of eyes trained on her. You will report to the Academy physician for physical evaluation, Threx said. His voice softened slightly. 6G impact is not trivial, even for your kind. I'll comply, Lyra replied. He hesitated, then added, what you did. It was not showmanship. It was necessity. Some here needed that lesson, though not in this manner. Lyra didn't answer. There was nothing she could add that wouldn't sound like justification or arrogance. As she turned to leave the dome, whispers followed her like a shifting fog. She didn't even hesitate. She moved under 6G like it was nothing. If that's restraint, what happens when humans stop holding back? The Academy had always treated humans as theoretical threats, numbers on a chart, rumors from border skirmishes, exaggerated tales from veterans. Now they had witnessed the reality firsthand. Lyra exited into the corridor. The silence there felt heavier than the dome's artificial gravity. She walked its length, hearing only the faint hum of stabilizers embedded in the walls. Halfway down the hall, Anivi hurried after her, thin limbs trembling. Lyra, it called softly. She slowed but didn't turn fully. Are you injured? No. Anivi wrung its hands. I didn't know he would go that far. You weren't responsible for his choices. But we watched it happen, Anivi said, voice cracking. None of us stopped it. Lyra met its wide, translucent eyes. It's difficult to stop someone determined to prove a point. Anivi nodded faintly. Are all humans like you? No, she answered. Most avoid killing at all costs. But we evolve under danger. We learn to survive things others never face. Anivi shivered. That's what they fear. Lyra didn't deny it. She simply continued walking. When she reached the medical wing, she underwent full diagnostic scans. Minor tissue strain. Elevated gravity-induced stress markers. Nothing catastrophic. The physician stared at the results as though she had rewritten biology. You endured 6G pressure for 12 seconds without structural failure, he said, disbelief warping his tone. That alone is incredible. But moving under it? That shouldn't be possible. Lyra replied quietly, humans adapt when pushed. The physician nodded, unsure how to process the understatement. After clearance, she returned to her assigned dorm. The room was small, metallic walls, a single bed, a desk integrated into the lighting strip. Normally, the hum of the academy comforted her, reminding her of Earth's relentless storms. Today, however, the quiet pressed differently. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands resting loosely on her knees. The events replayed in her mind, not emotionally, but analytically. She had warned Xor'vak. She had avoided escalation. The moment he increased gravity beyond survivable levels, the path became singular. Still, she felt no triumph. Only the weight of inevitability. The academy would tighten protocols. Alien students would reconsider their assumptions. Some would avoid her entirely. Others would attempt to understand. A few might seek revenge. But the message had been delivered clearly. Humans were not myths. Humans were not exaggerations. Humans were survivors, shaped by worlds that tried daily to kill them. A soft chime sounded at her door. Instructor Threx's voice filtered through the comm. Cadet Hale. The council has reviewed the report. Your presence will no longer be questioned. Understood, she said. Before the channel closed, he added, and this academy will never underestimate a human again. The room dimmed, leaving Lyra in quiet reflection. She lay back slowly, letting her muscles settle. Earth had warned the galaxy countless times. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. Today, one alien learned that truth too late. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn it far earlier. The day after Xor'vak's death unfolded with an eerie stillness across the academy. Hallways normally filled with competing voices now carried only distant footsteps and hushed murmurs. Lyra Hale walked through them with a composed expression, though she sensed the tremor beneath the silence. Every species adapted to fear differently, some hid it, some masked it with questions, others turned it inward. But today, the fear felt organized, as if the entire academy held a collective breath. Lyra approached the observation wing, where she had been ordered to report. Transparent walls overlooked the spiraling rings of Kralith 9. Storms churned far below, their movement uncannily similar to shifting emotion, quiet at the edges, violent at the core. A voice crackled over the intercom. Cadet Hale. Enter. She stepped into a circular room. Inside stood three figures, Instructor Threx, Academy Director Valeri, and a council liaison drone. Valeri, a tall Lemurian with crystalline skin, radiated a cold authority that filled the chamber. Cadet Hale, Valeri began, you are not here for discipline. You are here for clarity. Lyra nodded once. Yes, Director. Threx folded his arms, eyes steady but softened. He seemed less rigid today, perhaps because he had seen how tightly she tried to avoid conflict. Valeri gestured for Lyra to stand in the center of the room. We have reviewed the recordings several times. We acknowledge your restraint and the necessity of your final action. However, the consequences extend beyond one cadet's death. Lyra kept her posture level. I understand. Do you? Valeri asked. Several species have filed concerns. Some fear humans cannot be safely integrated. Others claim your presence destabilizes the student body. They want assurance. What assurance? Lyra asked. That humanity will not demonstrate unchecked strength, Valeri said. Our societies rely on predictability. Lyra exhaled slowly, not out of frustration, but careful consideration. Humans are not unpredictable. We respond to threat. We respond to survival. That's not instability. It's conditioning. Valeri tilted her head. Explain. Earth doesn't give warnings before disasters, Lyra said. We grow up learning how to stay alive when nothing wants us to. That makes us efficient under pressure. It doesn't make us reckless. Threx stepped forward. Director, permission to speak plainly? Valerie nodded. Threx looked at Lyra. What you did in 6G shouldn't be biologically possible for any species here. You should explain how you train for that. The Academy needs context. Lyra hesitated. Sharing too much about Earth could paint her as a threat. But withholding information wouldn't ease the fear. My parents lived in a region with gravity fluctuations, she said carefully. Not regulated ones, natural anomalies. We adapted. I trained under high resistance loads from childhood. Not to fight. To endure. She paused, then added, my instructors on Earth taught me restraint first. Control before strength. Because they knew any miscalculation could kill. Valerie examined her expression. Your calm is unsettling, Cadet Hale. Lyra replied, calm keeps people alive. Silence settled between them. At last, Valerie nodded. Very well. The Council has reached a decision. You may continue your studies. But your training will be observed more closely. Not to restrict you, only to avoid panic. Lyra accepted with a slight bow. Dismissed. As she turned to leave, Threx called after her. Cadet. One more thing. She stopped. You acted with discipline, he said quietly. Few here understand what that cost you. But I did. You did not strike out of anger. Lyra met his eyes. I didn't want to. But survival leaves little room for hesitation. Threx nodded solemnly. Walk carefully. Some will see you as a lesson. Others will see you as a symbol. Lyra stepped into the corridor. The door sealed behind her. The Academy was changing, and she felt the ripples even if no one said it aloud. As she walked, a group of younger students stood clumped near a corner. When she passed, they moved aside instantly, wide-eyed, attentive, not disrespectful, but cautious. One whispered to another, she doesn't look dangerous. The second whispered back, that's what makes her dangerous. Lyra kept her gaze forward. She didn't want fear trailing behind her like a shadow, yet she couldn't erase it. Fear rarely bowed to explanation. Eventually, she reached the exterior training decks, a quiet space overlooking the stars. She sat on a bench near the railing, letting cool air brush across her skin. For the first time since yesterday, she allowed herself a moment to breathe fully. Anivi approached hesitantly, hands clasped tightly. Lyra? Lyra looked up. You shouldn't be afraid to talk to me. I'm not afraid of you, Anivi said quickly. I'm afraid of what this place will do with you. That makes two of us, Lyra said softly. Anivi sat beside her, trembling a little from the Academy's cooler temperature. When the fight happened, I wanted to call out. I wanted to help you. But I froze. You didn't owe me intervention, Lyra said. It wasn't your burden. Anivi shook its head. But I watched something terrible happen. And you're still sitting here quietly, as if nothing changed. Things changed, Lyra replied. But not inside me. I'm still who I was before. Anivi looked down at its hands. I think that's why everyone fears humans. You endure without collapsing. You break enemies without pride. You survive things we can't imagine. Lyra stared at the stars. Survival makes you humble. It doesn't make you invincible. Anivi considered that. Will the others accept you? Some will, Lyra answered. Some won't. But acceptance wasn't why I came here. Then why did you come? Lyra took a long breath. To prove humans can stand beside the galaxy, not above it, not beneath it. Equal. A quiet pause stretched between them. Anivi finally smiled, a fragile, glimmering gesture. Then I hope you succeed. Lyra offered a small smile back. I will. One step at a time. Footsteps approached from behind. Instructor Threx stopped a short distance away. "Cadet Hale," he said. "A new training schedule will be sent to your terminal. Higher-level modules. The Council wants to observe your capabilities in controlled environments." Lyra rose to her feet. "I'll be ready." "I know," Threx replied. As he left, Anivi watched him go. "They're preparing for something." "Yes," Lyra said. "And so am I. The Academy might never forget what happened, but neither would it misunderstand humans again." The fear that lingered now was different, sharper, but grounded. Not hatred. Recognition. Lyra stood at the railing once more. Stars drifted above Kralith 9 like distant lanterns. She wasn't here to frighten anyone. She wasn't here to dominate. She was here because Earth had earned the right to stand among worlds that once dismissed it. Her voice fell into the quiet space around her. "We warned them humans survive anything." She let the words fade. Now they finally believe it.